Hello, I'm the Grove Street Vlogger, and I've just walked home from school in a blizzard. It's the 31st of March. Very strange. I'm doing it now. I don't usually do it after school because I'm going to France next week and I won't have time to do this sort of thing. So let's talk about what I read in March. Oh, just before I start, I've been having themes the last few months. But this month the theme was try and get as many different books that have nothing to do with each other as possible. So that's the plan. I didn't quite succeed in some ways. You'll see why. So the first thing I read was for the Dr. Johnson reading group. It is the selected letters of Horace Walpole, part of the Everyman thing. Everyman group. Everyman group. That's the Blue Man group, isn't it? The Everyman publishing. Got rather mangled actually at work, which was annoying. It's only 10% of the letters Horace Walpole wrote. Yet it's still a 600-page book. It's pretty solidly packed. And strangely, it's organised by theme. So you watch him get old again and again, because each theme is then chronological. So, yeah, very peculiar. Horace Walpole was the son of Robert Walpole, the man who was sarcastically called Prime Minister. That's where we get Prime Minister from. Just to lower you a little bit. Because, it was a sort of sarcastic, oh, he's the Prime Minister, oh, he's the main minister, practice your curtsy. That was where the word Prime Minister basically comes from. But he was his son. You could say he wasn't very ambitious. He mingled with the lordly set. He was in Parliament for 20 years, but he didn't really do that much. He mainly dedicated himself to his hobbies. But when his hobbies include reviving a whole architectural style with his Gothic castle that he built, Strawberry Hill, and also creating the Gothic novel, dedicating yourself to your hobbies doesn't sound quite so unambitious, to be honest. So yeah, very interesting man. Moved in lots of different circles, court circles, parliamentary circles, reading and writing circles. He had his own press. He preferred a higher brow sort of writer than Johnson and Co. In fact, some of the funniest things in there are his views of Johnson, who he considers to be a wordy, working class, self-important blowhard. He was quite nice about Goldsmith though, but in a rather descending way. That's not the word. Condescending way. Condescending with downwards. Yeah, with downwards. Yeah, makes sense. So they're very interesting letters. They have a whole host of people they're written to and things they're written about, and they give this whole different world of things. One, it's a book where the person in it doesn't hate Robert Walpole, which is quite rare, to be honest. I read all those anti-Walpole satires in January, and I've read many anti-Walpole satires just generally in life. But of course his son was really quite pro-Robert Walpole. That was interesting. Also, just little things like he didn't think Garrett was all that. He thought he was fine, but not great. And of course, now where we live, Garrett was one of the best actors who's ever lived. But of course, at the time, there would be people who just went, yeah, he's all right, but he's not that. And it's really good to hear that voice, that slightly cynical, sarky voice, to be honest. That's good. There's lots of good things about reading Walpole's letters. Walpole is a very good letter writer. He's a very entertaining person. I'm not sure. I might have had a slight glut of them, 600 pages, but not nearly as much of a glut as the person who's reading the 48-volume full version. Sound like 90,000 pages long or something ridiculous. So yeah, he's a man who wrote a lot of letters, and the ones selected for that are very good. Next, I read The Colour Purple. I picked this up at the free book swap place at my tube station. First, just because the title is anglicised, The Colour Purple. I'm like, oh, that's weird. And then because it says Great Family Reads, I thought, I don't know anything about Colour Purple, but it was made into a film by Spielberg. It's kind of, pretentious or something, is it? Or boring, I don't know. but kind of thing that made into an Oscar-winning film. It can't be a great family read. So I opened the beginning and read the first page. And it is not a great family read. A great family read? That's nutty. On the first page, a dad rapes his 14-year-old daughter. What kind of family is going to want that? Manson family. The one from, Leatherface. It's not a good family read in that sense. But it is a great read. It's a really good book. One of the things about this is that it's dealt really, not even matter of factly, because it's Sally who's the main character. She's narrating by letter most of it. And it starts off with this happening to her. And she just accepts it. It's just a part of life. Oh, here's my dad, and here's his penis, and there it is inside me, and oh, I've got fat, and oh, he's taken the baby, and the baby's not to be seen anymore. Maybe he's killed it and put it in the woods. And she's just she's not, she just accepts these things, almost like a cow, just placid. And as it says in the book, she's a black, poor, ugly woman, therefore she means nothing. And what she learns throughout the course of the book is no, that's not true. And one of the first things she learns is, but I'm here. And then it builds from that. And so she's married off someone because she can't have kids because these early children have messed her insides up, as I think she puts it. So she can't have kids, but that makes her the perfect wife to a husband who doesn't want any more kids but wants the ones he's got looked after. So she's just shipped away, and she lives a life of drudgery, and she's beaten and things. And along comes Shug, who was she's a singer, a blues singer, like Betty Smith. And so, she comes to recuperate because she's an ex-lover of the husband. And Celie starts seeing her and seeing, she doesn't just accept these things. Maybe I won't. And then as the book goes on, more and more characters come together. And what is so lovely about it starts with this horrible thing. And you think it could just be this pattern of repeated violence and abuse the whole way through. But no, it ends on a really positive note. It's really happy at the end. Because all the characters affect each other just slightly, and they all start to open and blossom. Now, this is not to say everyone has a fairy tale life, and it's not to say no one has scars by the end of it, but it's about essentially how the community that these people build helps each one of them grow and blossom and become not just better people, but just more people. How they're not nothing, how they are worthy people, and it's a really good. By the ending, it's a really powerful. It's a great book, very, very good. The Colour Purple, not a great family read, but a great read. The next thing I read was Nasreddin Hodjah, 100 Comic Tales in Verse. So Nasreddin Hodjah is a sort of stock character in many Islamic places, traditions. Particularly in Turkey and Syria and Serbia. There's a whole bunch of places that claim Nasreddin Hodjah. Serbia, did I say Serbia? I'm not sure about that one. And he's essentially the wise idiot. And so the little short stories display both his wisdom and his idiocy. And sometimes it works for him and sometimes it works against him. And they're essentially like dad jokes with a little spiritual soupçon. Soupçon, oh yes. I'm going to France next week, by the way, so soupçon. It's a beer. To them. And that really, they're good. They're fun. The trouble with this version of the book I've got by Raj Arangam, Arumugam, sorry Raj, is that, one, the book looks cheap. Looks like it's homemade. Two, sorry, Raj, but the verse is not verse. It's not even free verse. It's just prose that's cut up and with no full stops, which adds to the cheapness, to be honest. And the stories, I don't know, because it doesn't have any notes or any footnotes or any, it doesn't feel like a legit thing. The stories could just be cracker jokes that have been made into Nasreddin Hodjah things, and maybe cracker jokes and Nasreddin Hodjah jokes do have this crossover. Who knows? But it doesn't feel quite legit enough. So I really enjoyed the concept of the Nasreddin Hodjah story, and I really enjoyed some of these. I mean, they're quite fun. Here's one. Nasreddin Hodjah, tell us truly, if you're conventional or radical, are you truly acceptable? Dear friend, that depends all on which bunch of fanatics rules at the moment. See, there's, little jokes, little dad jokes with little bits of truth in. It's a good idea, but I want something beefier. Yeah. I moved on next to Me, Cheeta, the autobiography, which claims to be the autobiography of Cheeta the monkey from the Tarzan films. There he is, in action with Johnny Weissmuller. Of course it's not. Of course I knew it wasn't by a monkey, but the first thing that made me think, this might be by an English person, is when there's a joke about how English people have no senses of humour, and they have a horrible stuck-up way of spelling, and humour was spelt the English way, and it made me think, okay, it's an English guy having fun here. The central premise is Cheeta is really, really grateful to people for the opportunities he's had to be on stage, but mainly in films and in the Tarzan films. He's really grateful, and he's a total loving. He has all these stories about, this person here and this person here, and it really loves humanity for these opportunities and things. Also, Cheetah's grown up, as a chimpanzee, has normalised certain kinds of violence, and so when the horrible, weird Hollywood people do their horrible, weird Hollywood things, Cheeta sort of sees it as a normal human thing, and so just casually drops things about rape and murder and suicide and forced abortions and all kinds of unpleasant stuff just into the narrative as he goes along. Which is sort of the main joke, and it gets a little tiring, that joke, but hey. The other fun thing is Cheetah's views of the Tarzan films. They are this huge spiritual tug of war between him and Jane. Jane representing domesticity, him representing the freedom of the jungle. And that cry, that means I am happy and wild and free of my animals. And that's like the place to be. It's really, I love the way he sees that Jane is the villain. And when Jane is gone, the only person she can be replaced with, obviously, is Nazis, because there's no one quite as bad as Jane. It was good, that part. In terms of just overall, it did seem to have a message, and the message seemed to be that humans, what we would call man's inhumanity to man, is just another bit of human interaction. Animals are horrible to each other all the time. They murder each other and do all sorts of unpleasant things, and it's in their nature. And so our unpleasantness is in our nature. We're not being inhumane or inhuman. We're just being human. And that kind of seems to be the main thrust of it. But also that with this being the main thrust, we shouldn't hate ourselves for it, and that Cheeta loves us, particularly because Cheeta loves Johnny Weissmuller, who is a very free, natural man. It wasn't the best book ever. The concept is more fun than the execution, which is not to say that it's badly executed. I don't know how you perfectly execute it to be as fun as the concept when stretched out. So it was good, but I've read better. Next book here is the Kama Sutra, but I didn't read the Kama Sutra. I read Unforbidden Pleasures by Adam Phillips. The reason I don't have a copy is because I gave it away as quickly as possible. This nearly became the first book I've not finished reading in 10 years. Unforbidden Pleasures. Well, what are they? Fuck knows. The book, what was it about? Fuck knows. It was just words. Words. It was just farts. Just word farts in a book, as far as I can tell. And I have a degree in philosophy. Which I hated, because it all felt like word farts in a book. So, there are pleasures that are forbidden to us, and there are pleasures that are not. They're the unforbidden pleasures. He spends most of the book talking about the forbidden pleasures, why forbidding them makes them more pleasurable, what process of forbidden is, and who gets to do the forbidding, and why they forbid, and all this kind of stuff. The actual unforbidden pleasures barely mentioned in the book, if I'm completely honest with you. And then it was just stuff like have a cup of tea. And yeah. I was looking for a book about small pleasures, about all the little things. Right now, the sky is beautiful. The snow's stopped. The clouds are huge and fluffy. The sun is coming in at that beautiful angle. I've got rainbows all around here that you can't see. Can you see this? No, you can't see that either. Little stars swirling around. And it's very beautiful in here. A good unforbidden pleasure. But he doesn't seem interested in that. He says he doesn't like to make a point, because if he makes a point, he then blocks all the other points he could make. But the fact is, a bee flying around, refusing to pick one nectar up in case it doesn't, because it doesn't want to block out the other nectars, ends up getting no nectar. It ends up flavourless, because essentially you've got to make a point to stick with it. Samuel Johnson could have written this entire book in 800 words and probably been more nuanced. It was shite. Moving on. William Kotzwinkle, Dr. Rat. And this is where I shouldn't be making links, but it just happened. So I had the book about Cheeta, who nearly goes to a lab, and there's like a bit where Cheeta sees what a miserable place the lab is. For a page, and then is called away from it. In this, Dr. Rat has been in a lab for many years, has run all the tests and gone mad, and also completely identifies with humanity and the testers. In fact, a lot of reviews I've read make it sound like Dr. Rat is doing experiments. Dr. Rat's not doing the experiments. Just Dr. Rat identifies so closely with the experimenters that it sort of feels like he is. And they're pointless, the experiments going on in this lab. They're things like sucking brains out of rats, or taking their eyeballs out and putting their testicles in their eyeballs, or burning one of them was baking a whole bunch of kittens to death in a microwave. See what happens to kittens in a microwave. And the whole point is that they need to keep testing on animals to get grants. And it doesn't really matter what they do, as long as animals are tested on. So these horrible things are happening for no reason whatsoever. And Dr. Rat loves it all. His death is the only release is his thing. And he thinks human beings are wonderful and brilliant, and is very supportive. We get other chapters of other horrible human things. So there's a cow off to the grinders. There's a pig who gets slit in half. There's an egg, a chicken done laying eggs who now gets minced. All this kind of stuff, what you'd expect. Humans bad, animals good. Meanwhile, dogs are starting to sort of have this psychic wave of coming together. And then as the book goes, all animals start to have it. And like the chimpanzees start to gather, and the elephants start to gather, and even the sloths are gathering and hurrying. The rhinoceroses and all these animals are gathering together because they want to express themselves as one great animal, and they're waiting for the human beings to come and feel part of that one great animal with them. This is leading to some terrible things in the laboratory. All the animals are refusing to die in horrible ways, and Dr. Rat is lobbing grenades of bubonic plague at them to try and kill them all. At the end, all the animals come together, the humans come, and I'm not going to reveal the rest. It's not a happy ending. I probably revealed it by saying that, to be honest, but there you go. So Dr. Rat, it's vicious and nasty and quite funny, And it has a slightly over-melodramatic ending. And it's probably not saying as much as it thinks it is, but it's still good fun. All right. Next, I read Memoirs of xxxx, which doesn't mean he's, really sexy. It means that he didn't write the name, his real name, on his memoirs. Memoirs of Unknown Person, also known as the Formosan fraud, George Psalmanazar. So, George Psalmanazar came to England claiming to be from Formosa. He wrote a ludicrous book about what it was like in Formosa, where none of it's true. He had his own invented language. He was the talk of the town for a little while. And then, interest died down, and he ended up becoming a hack writer, where he got to know Samuel Johnson in Samuel Johnson's early hack writer years, and they became really good friends. Johnson actually said he was George Psalmanazar was the best person he knew. It was really cool. So on George's death, he left the memoirs, including some really detailed instructions about how to kill him. Not how to kill him, how to bury him. Like how he had to have the body waiting for a few days before being buried unknown in an obscure grave. He was obviously worried about grave robbers. And then to release this memoirs as he came out. As he came out? What am I talking? It's the beer. I haven't even had any, really. As he died. And in the memoirs, he came out, as it were. He admitted that he was a complete fraud. He said, that he was from Europe, and this is how he'd been travelling around, and this is how he came up with the fraud in the first place, and that he wasn't really trying to upset anybody, and he wasn't trying to prove anything, and he wasn't trying to make anything happen. He was just poor and having a bit of fun with his character, and it just kept going from there. And he loved being accepted, and he loved all the daft things that came out of it. Certainly, if I just wandered somewhere and I pretended to be whatever, it wouldn't really work now if I pretended to be Formosa's from Taiwan. So if I pretended to be Taiwanese, I don't think people would really accept that now, but they did then. But if I'd be sniggering to myself, no, I'd be loving it and enjoying making all the stuff up just as he did. However, by the time he died, he felt really guilty about it. He felt like he'd done a really terrible thing, basing most of his life on a lie. He was really deeply ashamed. I think more ashamed than he needed to be, because he gave a lot of people a lot of pleasure and a lot of fun in his story. But he feels bad about it, and he goes into it in the book. Things he doesn't reveal in the book. His real name or where he's from. Still a mystery. I really liked it. Very interesting. And I'd like to get a copy of the book he wrote as a fake Formosan about Formosa. All the ridiculous stuff about them killing all their children and stuff. Which is what he claimed they did. Okay, so after that, I read The Alteration by Kingsley Amis. And it's not linked to any of the books I've read here, but it's linked to a book I read at the beginning of the year, because it's another Britain alternative world in which Britain is Catholic. But in this case, it wasn't because the Spanish Armada won. It's because the whole Reformation itself kind of fizzled out when Martin Luther became the Pope. They basically invited him in and made him Pope Germanicus. But some of the things are the same. Namely, there is no social or technological progression, really. There are very high-speed trains, actually. You can get from London to Rome in 7 hours. But there's no heating, there's no electricity, there's no telly. This is in 1977. There's no modern ways of structuring things. There's no corporations or anything like that in particular. There's no chain shops or... it's essentially a pseudo-medieval world. And we're introduced to it in a really interesting way with this description of a cathedral where the architecture is by Isambard Kingdom Brunel, and some of the ceilings were painted by Blake, and some of the others were William Morris, and David Hockney has painted an Ecce Homo on there, and Gainsborough's done the stained glass ceiling, and you get this idea where all these artists have existed and are, but they've all been subsumed into the church and are painting church subjects. And our main character, is called Hubert, horrible name. He is a beautiful singer. And because he's a beautiful singer, they want to cut his balls off so that they don't drop. And he carries on being a beautiful singer. And he's justifiably a little bit concerned by this notion. He doesn't particularly want to have his balls cut off, because one, he's kind of interested in the notion of sex and women and family and all of this. And two, he lives in this patriarchal society where being a man is the thing. And Eunuch doesn't quite become a man, so he's not sure about it. And other people have other ideas for various different reasons. And this turns into an escapade. Can he escape? Can he get away from the church? Can he get away from the Pope, who is a Yorkshireman? Apparently he's Harold Wilson, I think it said, is the Pope. And it's a very entertaining book in the sense of this whole other world. I've heard it said it's a dystopia. I mean, it sort of is. There's no free thought really. What the Pope wants goes, and all this kind of stuff. But at the same time, I think most people in this world have quite a nice life. And to be honest, how much free thought do we have? I mean, we're cowed under by businesses and by corporations and by all this kind of stuff. How much freedom do we really have? They might see us as dystopian, lacking in a spiritual oomph. Anyway, the main place you can go for escape is New England, which is America, which is sort of possibly Protestant, possibly atheist. They let scientists work there. They don't let pure science happen in the Catholic world. Only like engineering, technology, applied science, but not pure science. And then as we're about to go on the journey to America, we find out it's very racist, and some of the hints we've had that it's a horrible racist dystopia in itself. We don't get there anyway. It was a really interesting book, really fun in a weird way. The central conceit is that real art has a connection to sex. I'm not convinced. I think there's enough art that's not about sex. There's many other human drives that power people through life, and I think many more important than sex. But there we go. That was that. Last book of the month is Muriel Aiding and Abetting. So there's a woman who was a fake stigmatic, and talking of stigmata, look, that's how hard I work. I'm getting stigmata. Anyway, she was a fake stigmatic, and she has run off to Europe, and now she's a fake psychologist. And she happens to have 2 Lord Lucans on her books. And the question is, well, is either of them Lord Lucan? Do they know each other? Do they want something from her? And so on and so on. It's by Muriel, who I find pretty hit and miss. This is fun, but it's not lingering. Yeah, it's good fun. It's silly. It's knockabout. They go to this weird non-existent African country full of cannibals and stuff. And there's loads of weird Lord Lucan facts and stuff about how boring he was and how he only ate smoked salmon and lamb chops. But anyway, it's decent. It was a good little fluff to end the month with. So March. The whole point was a whole bunch of random books, and that's what I read, and I enjoyed most of them. Did I not enjoy it? Oh, yeah. I didn't enjoy Unforbidden Pleasures, but I enjoyed all the others. Colour Purple being way up there. George Psalmanazar being quite high up too. It was a really good month. Next month, I'm going to France, so there'll be a chunk of French books, but there'll be a few other bits besides. Have a lovely time. Enjoy yourself. See ya.